Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Have you ever found yourself, scrolling through social media and you see that wine mom meme
Oh, yeah, it's everywhere.
everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you've heard a friend joke about, "Oh, I need a drink after a long day."
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you felt a weird sense of recognition, or maybe even, I don't know, a little flicker of unease.
It definitely strikes a chord.
It really does. I mean, it feels like our culture is just uh, saturated with alcohol. It's not
Yeah.
just a drink, is it?
No, not at all.
It's framed as like a reward or a coping mechanism,
Hmm.
or sometimes even this like symbol of liberation.
Yeah, empowerment almost.
Exactly. But what happens when that whole cultural script, that seemingly harmless glass of wine or whatever, starts feeling less like freedom?
And more like a trap.
Yeah, exactly. Like a cage, maybe, a
Right.
subtle one, but still confining.
Right.
So today, we're doing a really crucial deep dive. We're looking into something that's, well, it's intensely personal, but it's also profoundly shaped by the world around us. We're talking about the unique challenges women face in recognizing and maybe addressing problematic drinking.
It's a huge topic.
It is. We're going to peel back the layers, really explore what surrender means from a woman's perspective. And we'll be drawing a lot from Holly Whitaker's book, Quit Like a Woman.
Which is a really powerful text.
Absolutely. But not just that. We're bringing in insights from, a whole range of sources: recovery stories, feminist critiques, medical views, even some history.
Kind of weaving it all together.
Yeah, trying to give you a really full picture of this complex journey.
And what's really striking, I think, is just how deeply alcohol is woven into, like, the very fabric of society, especially for women.
Right.
So for this deep dive, we're not just looking at, the mechanics of addiction. We're really focusing on the why it matters.
Okay.
The subtle ways and sometimes the really obvious ways that culture, these norms, they build barriers. Barriers to self-awareness and barriers to recovery for women.
Creating obstacles.
Exactly. So our mission today, really, is to connect those dots for you, the listener. So hopefully you can walk away with a richer, maybe more nuanced understanding of it all. And maybe uncover some surprising things along the way. Yeah, definitely some surprising facts. And also just appreciate the sheer courage it takes for women to step outside those cultural currents.
To find their own path.
Exactly. To find sobriety, to reclaim themselves.
Okay, so let's start with that big elephant in the room. Or maybe it's the beautifully marketed wine glass in the hand.
Yeah, good way to put it.
As we get into this, it's clear. Holly Whitaker, in her book, she makes this really provocative point, maybe even unsettling.
About big alcohol.
Yeah. She basically argues that big alcohol is maybe more insidious, more dangerous, and definitely more pervasive than big tobacco ever was.
Wow, that's a bold claim. More than big tobacco.
Think about it. Peak smoking. Maybe 50% of American adults smoked. Today, almost 70% of American adults drink.
That's a huge difference.
It is. And we're talking a massive, like, $1.5 trillion global industry, mostly run by men, by the way.
Right.
And unlike tobacco companies who had to convince people to start, the alcohol industry kind of found us already drinking.
So their job was easier in a way?
Well, different. Their strategy has been to maintain and grow its sort of ritualistic presence, embedding itself everywhere.
Into everything. Holidays, celebrations, weekends.
Exactly. And a huge, really strategic part of that growth. Whitaker points this out really clearly. They targeted women.
As an emerging market.
Yeah, treating women and even kids, disturbingly, as emerging markets. And this isn't just theory, right? It connects directly to things like the wine mom.
Mm-hmm. The trope that just won't die.
Right. It's not just some funny internet thing. It's basically a multi-billion-dollar marketing campaign playing out daily.
Normalizing it.
Totally normalizing it. Think about the message. Mommy needs wine. It's not just about relaxing, is it? It subtly makes alcohol seem like the only way, the only acceptable way to cope with modern motherhood, modern womanhood.
All the pressures.
Yeah, it frames it as funny, maybe even rebellious,
Yeah.
self-care, which makes it so hard for women to question their own drinking because, well, everyone's doing it, right?
It's just a joke.
It's just a joke. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you get this massive internal conflict, this like tightrope walk between what society expects and your own well-being.
And zooming out a bit, the bigger picture here isn't just clever ads. It's about this deep cultural story, shaping how women see themselves, their choices.
Yeah.
Women are encouraged, sometimes subtly, sometimes really overtly, to see alcohol as the solution,
Yeah.
the go-to solution for stress, for celebration, for just navigating life.
Managing work, kids, everything.
Everything. And when society keeps hammering home this idea that wine is a reward, it's self-care, it's even female liberation, well, that creates a huge mental block.
Hard to see it differently.
Incredibly hard. How can you possibly think your drinking might be a problem when everything around you tells you it's a good thing? An earned treat.
Right. The messaging is just so constant.
It is. And it subtly, or not so subtly, normalizes a level of drinking that, for a lot of people, becomes really problematic. Precisely because it's dressed up as something good, something empowering even.
And it's not just the ads, is it? It's our social lives.
Yeah.
Everything seems to revolve around alcohol sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Laura McCowan, in her book We Are the Luckiest, she talks about this, the sheer ubiquity of it. Like, it was just everywhere.
Yeah, she describes that so vividly.
She talks about booze carts at the office at 3 p.m., bars everywhere on the way home, friends always suggesting drinks, client dinners,
Even kids' play dates.
even play dates. For her, trying to get sober, it felt inescapable. Alcohol shaped every single interaction.
That sounds exhausting.
Right. And then you have Caroline Knapp in Drinking, a love story, reflecting on her early days, how drinking felt tied up with like camaraderie, machismo, almost
Right, it's like
sophistication.
a certain image.
Totally. And she mentioned seeing famous women struggling, like Betty Ford or Judy Garland, but seeing them as different. Like their problems were due to fame, extraordinary pressure, not just ordinary life.
So she couldn't see herself in them initially.
Exactly. She couldn't connect their struggles to her own reliance on alcohol, which shows how easily we can think, oh, that's them, that's addiction. That couldn't possibly be me.
We distance ourselves.
We do, because the label itself feels alien.
So it raises this really important question, doesn't it? When alcohol is just so deeply tangled up in everything, social life, work life, even family life for women, how can anyone possibly choose a different path?
Without feeling like a killjoy.
Exactly. Without feeling like you're ruining the fun or you're suddenly an outsider, not one of us. The pressure to just go along, to fit in, it's huge.
Immense.
And Ruby Warrington, in Sober Curious, she adds another layer. She talks about booze and third-wave feminism.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, this idea that women were asserting equality partly by adopting behaviors seen as masculine, including drinking like men. Ah, okay. Like
Yeah.
it was a sign of liberation.
Right. Drinking heavily could almost feel like a feminist act, a rebellion, which makes rejecting alcohol feel really complicated, maybe even like rejecting empowerment itself.
Oh, that adds another level of conflict.
Definitely. And while we're talking about these pressures, we absolutely have to touch on a darker side, a really serious consequence of this whole alcohol culture for women.
Okay.
Warrington points out, and it's truly alarming, that alcohol is the #1 date rape drug.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She cites a study, I think it was from 2007, National Institute of Justice. It found that a staggering 89% of women who experienced incapacitated sexual assault had been drinking beforehand.
89%. That's horrifying.
It is. It's a direct, disturbing link that adds this whole other layer of gravity. It goes beyond just personal choice, doesn't it? It's about safety, consent, vulnerability, all within a culture that pushes drinking, especially on women.
So the cultural embrace has these potentially devastating consequences.
Exactly. Real, irreversible consequences. So, okay, against this backdrop, the cultural normalization, the marketing, these intense social pressures, the safety issues, how does a woman even begin to think, maybe I have a problem?
It's incredibly difficult.
And part of that difficulty, it seems, comes from the stereotype of what an addict is supposed to look like. Let's really unpack that.
Yeah, that stereotype is so powerful.
Ruby Warrington talks about this in Sober Curious. We're taught to picture someone, weak, sloppy, self-indulgent, lazy.
Rock bottom, basically.
Exactly. Someone clearly falling apart. But the reality, especially for many women struggling with alcohol, it's often the complete opposite.
Right. High achievers, perfectionists.
Totally. Holding down jobs, raising families, looking completely together on the outside, which creates this huge cognitive dissonance.
That internal clash. How can I be an addict if I'm doing all these things?
Precisely. It doesn't fit the picture we've been sold.
And Maya Salovitz, in Unbreaking Brain, she really pushes back hard on that stereotype. She calls the idea of the typical addict, not white, not female, not educated, not middle class. She calls it a cruel stereotype forged in intense racism.
Oh, strong words.
Yeah. And she argues it actively prevents understanding. It delays people recognizing their own issues, stops them seeking help.
Because they don't fit the mold.
Exactly. If you, maybe a high-functioning woman listening to this, don't see yourself in that narrow, prejudiced image, how could you possibly have that problem? It's this invisible but incredibly strong barrier to even seeing it in yourself.
A barrier built on prejudice.
Tragically, yes. And the insight that emerges here, I think, is that whether we call addiction a disease or, pathological overlearning, the changes in the brain, they're real. They're scientifically observable.
Okay, so it's not just in your head.
No, it profoundly impacts thoughts, feelings, behaviors. Gabor Mate, Caroline Knapp, they both talk about addiction as this deep neurological thing.
Can you break that down a bit?
Sure. Think of your brain's reward system like having a gas pedal and a brake. Alcohol, especially that initial rush, slams the gas, big dopamine surge, feels good.
Right.
But keep doing that, and your brain tries to protect itself, tries to get back to balance, so it starts hitting the brakes harder and harder. It develops these compensatory adaptations. Meaning your brain actually starts decreasing its own natural dopamine release, so those pleasure circuits get depleted.
So you need more just to feel normal.
Exactly. And that journey Mate talks about, from the initial buzz to feeling really depressed, it can be rapid. Inexorable, he calls it.
Which takes the moral judgment out of it, maybe.
That's crucial. It shifts it from being about weak willpower to being about complex biology, psychology, environment interacting.
Makes sense.
And there's even this interesting debate, right? NID, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, calls addiction a chronic relapsing brain disease, like diabetes.
Yep.
But Mark Lewis, a neuroscientist, he argues it's more like pathological overlearning, a deeply learned bad habit, basically. The brain doing what it does, learning, adapting, repeating what brings relief, even if it's destructive.
Like a learned shortcut to coping that goes wrong.
Precisely. But either way, disease or learned behavior, the impact on the brain is significant, especially on the orbitive frontal cortex.
The decision-making part?
Yeah, decision-making, impulse control, weighing consequences. That often gets dysfunctional, which just reinforces the whole destructive loop.
And this isn't just like abstract science, is it? It's lived reality for people. Sarah Hapola in Blackout, her description is so visceral.
Absolutely.
She talks about blackouts as this point where two kinds of drinking meet. One is like a comet in your veins, exciting. The other leaves you sunken and cratered.
That loss of light she describes.
Yeah. And she's so honest about drinking just to numb tears, saying, if I didn't have that wine, my insides would turn to granite.
That fear of feeling.
That absolute fear. That desperate, panicked need to anesthetize me. Feck it, as she puts it. It just highlights the deep pain, the anxiety, the stuff alcohol is covering up.
It's not just for fun anymore. It's escape.
Right. Escape from an internal state that feels unbearable. So pulling this together, it feels like maybe we get stuck asking the wrong questions sometimes.
Oh, what do you mean?
Like getting bogged down in labels. Holly Whitaker critiques this, saying the focus on why am I an alcoholic can be like a secret handshake more than a diagnosis.
Okay.
She argues we get lost in a vortex of what doesn't matter instead of looking at what does. And she shifts the questions too.
Yeah.
Why can't I be with myself at all?
That's a much deeper question.
It is. And she talks about this two-part problem. First, you have to address the root causes, the pain, trauma, whatever drives you to cope, by looking outside yourself.
The underlying why.
Exactly. And second, you tackle the addiction cycle itself, the biological, spiritual, social, psychological mess that comes from using substances to manage those root causes.
So it acknowledges everyone's struggles.
Right. Everyone suffers. Everyone looks for ways to manage it. It's just the way we manage it that becomes the issue.
And that reframing, shifting from a label towards this deeper self-inquiry, that feels like a much more compassionate way in, especially for women.
More empowering.
Definitely. If you're already fighting societal judgments, the wine mom stuff, trying to be perfect, shifting from a stigmatizing label like alcoholic to understanding your core self, your coping mechanisms, that can be incredibly liberating.
Takes the shame away, maybe.
Yeah, or at least lessens it. Ruby Warrington mentions that many women struggle with step one, admitting powerlessness, precisely because it feels like defeat in a world demanding female strength.
Like giving up.
Exactly. But asking, why can't I be with myself, turns it from self-blame towards self-discovery.
Understanding the why behind the drinking.
Right. addressing the deeper wounds, the unhelpful coping patterns, rebuilding a more authentic self, instead of just focusing only on stopping the substance. It empowers women to explore their inner world with curiosity, not condemnation.
Okay, so building on that idea,
Mm-hmm.
shifting from the label to self-inquiry, let's really dig into this concept of surrender. It's central to 12-step recovery, right?
Absolutely. Step 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him.
Now, that word powerlessness in step 1 and then turning over your will, for a lot of people, especially women taught to be self-sufficient, that's a huge hurdle.
A massive one.
Ruby Warrington talks about her own struggle with this in Sober Curious. She'd already started exploring sobriety, proving to herself she was full of power.
Right, she felt stronger sober.
Yeah, she felt chattier, funnier, a better dancer. So accepting powerlessness felt like denying her own strength, like going backward.
It contradicted her experience.
Exactly. And this resistance, it's not just ego, is it? It's tied into how women are socialized. There's this quote, I think from The Courage to Change, about a woman who carefully paced her drinking. Why? So she'd never be drunk and reeling around, a loudmouth woman.
Wow.
Because, she says, there is no such thing as an attractive, cute, funny, drunken woman. That just shows the intense fear of judgment women internalize.
The pressure to maintain control, even when drinking.
Right. Maintain the facade, which makes admitting a problem, embracing vulnerability, which is what surrender is about, incredibly difficult.
It feels like losing control is the ultimate failure for women.
Yeah. Admitting powerlessness feels like a step back after maybe years of striving for perfection. Society rewards strength, independence, not, as Warrington put it, the ugly mess inside my head after drinking.
It's a real cultural clash, and that highlights this deep paradox, doesn't it? We praise self-sufficiency constantly, but in addiction, that same self-sufficiency can be a huge barrier, a fatal one even.
How so?
Well, the 12-step literature itself warns about the dangers of self-sufficiency. It says dependence as a means to independence is key.
Dependence on what?
On others, on a program, on a higher power. Because the danger of self-sufficiency is isolation. It's ego. It's thinking you can fix this massive problem all by yourself when maybe you can't. And many women, as Stephanie Covington points out in A Woman's Way Through the 12 Steps, are socialized to be overly responsible, people pleasers, perfectionists.
Treats that make letting go hard.
Incredibly hard. Relying on others feels like weakness. But real strength and recovery often comes from saying, okay, I can't do this alone, I need help. It comes from acknowledging limits, not pretending you have it all together.
So recovery is about connection, not isolation.
Exactly. Especially for women, healing happens in relationship, in community, moving from that lonely struggle to shared support.
And that journey inward, facing what the alcohol was masking, that takes you through some pretty tough emotional territory.
Oh, absolutely.
Sarah Hippola talks about feeling like a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
You know, blaming everything else. Too much drinking, fucked up relationships, depression.
A way to avoid responsibility.
She says so, yeah. It let her avoid looking at her own choices. And she's so honest about the triggers, the anxiety, sadness, shame, rage, that immediate urge, anesthetize me. Fuck it.
That desperation to not feel.
Yeah. Not knowing how to handle the very beasts you never learned to contend with in any other way. And this where just talk about that vicious circle.
A drunkenness, hangover, remorse, feeling worthless.
And then drinking again to escape that feeling. It just feeds itself. Russell Brand has this interesting approach in his book, Recovery. He talks about charting resentments.
Listing everything you're angry about.
Yeah. Like meticulously. Even deep stuff, like Mom for getting cancer when I was 7. But the point isn't blame.
What is it then?
It's about bringing unconscious patterns, unconscious drivers of destructive behavior into the light, seeing what's really fueling things.
Understanding the roots.
Exactly. He talks about how fame, money, all that stuff society chases, it left him feeling empty, revealed the hollowness of just focusing on yourself. So for you, listening, maybe this resonates. It's about facing those beasts, as Apollo called them, acknowledging the anxiety, the sadness, the anger, whatever it is that makes you think, this is why I drank.
And then learning new ways.
Yeah, learning entirely new ways to navigate those feelings without reaching for the old solution.
So, when we talk about courage in this context, what does that actually mean?
Good question.
It's probably not about being fearless, right? It seems more about recognizing the discomfort, seeing the emptiness or the self-pity or whatever that feeling is.
And not running away.
Exactly. Choosing to sit with it, to experience it. Instead of grabbing the usual fix, Ruby Warrington talks about having to repeatedly and determinedly go against the grain.
Taking a different choice again and again.
Yeah, and sitting in the discomfort of this process in the name of positive change is this active, conscious self-reconstruction.
Like rewiring your brain.
Literally. Creating new neural pathways by making that different choice consistently. It's about, as she says, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And through that, realizing, like she did, I was full of power.
Finding power in facing discomfort, not avoiding it.
Precisely. It's an active defiance of old habits and those strong external pressures telling you to just numb out. It's redefining strength not as control, but as resilience.
And the change that comes from that kind of courage, it seems profound. That woman we mentioned from The Courage to Change, she talks about learning she's not the center of the universe, developing more confidence, more tolerance, getting rid of that people-pleasing trap.
That sounds freeing.
Totally. She found depression and unhappiness were no longer a part of my life, and self-pity rarely took over. Her whole inner world changed.
Wow.
And Laura McCowan finding that surprising relief in just saying, push off from here, realizing you didn't have to stay stuck in self-hatred.
And that moment of clarity.
Yeah. And that's really what this deep dive is about, isn't it? That incredible, defiant courage to change your inner landscape, to push off from that shore of self-hatred and fear and start building something new. So, okay, someone finds that courage, makes that decision. What does the path forward actually look like? Especially for women navigating this.
Well, a huge part is that rigorous self-examination and making amends where needed.
Step 6, 8, and 9 in the 12 steps.
Exactly. Step 6, as outlined in A Woman's Way Through the 12 Steps, is about identifying those ingrained habits and attitudes that block connection with others and with yourself.
Likewise.
Things that are common for women, maybe. Excessive guilt, perfectionism, people-pleasing, blaming, self-hatred, passivity, dishonesty. Could be emotional distance, being overly responsible, needing constant approval.
The goal isn't self-criticism, though, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. It's about radical truthfulness about mistakes and character flaws. Seeing clearly without beating yourself up. Self-awareness, not self-flagellation.
Okay. And then steps 8 and 9
Right.
about relationships.
Right. Step 8 is making that list everyone you've harmed. Step 9 is making direct amends, face-to-face if possible, unless doing that would cause more harm.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
It takes immense courage. But think about that story of Mary Lynn in A Woman's Way, making amends to her father after years.
What happened?
It didn't just clear the air, it showed her a vulnerable side of him she'd never seen. It renewed their love and respect, led to a much more honest relationship.
So amends can actually heal the past, in a way.
Yeah, redefine the past, as the book says. So for you listening, it's about looking inward, yes, but for a purpose. Freedom. Freedom from patterns that sabotage relationships and growth. Seeking honesty, even when it's deeply uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that process, being rigorously honest about feelings, even if, as the sources say, people around us might not welcome the change.
Yeah.
It's vital for self-assertion, for redefining that past, and this idea of admitting defects to someone else. The 12 Steps and 12 Traditions 1 points out this is ancient wisdom found in spiritual traditions for centuries, not just a modern therapy idea.
No, and modern psychology backs it up too. Psychiatrists, psychologists, they stress our need for insight, for talking about flaws with someone trustworthy.
Makes sense.
For people struggling with alcohol, the sources are pretty clear. Without that fearless, honest admission to another person, lasting sobriety is really tough, maybe impossible.
Why? What does sharing it do?
It breaks the isolation. It brings accountability. It gets you out of that prison of secrecy and shame. That vulnerability is where deep healing starts.
Another huge piece, especially for women, maybe taught to be super self-reliant, is letting go of that need for total individual control, embracing a higher power and community.
Yeah, and higher power can be a tricky concept for people.
Totally. The word God can be a real stumbling block, bringing up rigid religious ideas that just don't fit for everyone.
Right.
But the beauty of the program, as the sources show, is its flexibility. Daily Reflections talks about members making AA itself your higher power.
Or even simpler things.
Yeah, like finding connection in a table, a tree, then my AA group. It's about a gradual personal belief developing. It's not dogma.
It's about recognizing you're not alone.
Exactly. That there's a power greater than your own stressed out will, whether that's the group, the spiritual force, the recovery principles themselves, however you understand it. The Little Red Book Study Guide has this powerful line. In complete defeat, we will find enduring strength.
A paradox.
Yeah. When you stop fighting, stop trying to control everything with your ego, that's when real strength emerges. Wisdom, it says, is seeing alternatives, getting free from the chains of our self-centered ego.
So surrender isn't weakness, it's opening up.
Right. Shifting from exhausting individual control to accepting interdependence, recognizing forces larger than yourself.
So how does that shift from self-reliance to interdependence actually play out day to day, especially for women?
Community seems key.
It's fundamental, living the truth that we don't recover in isolation, we heal in relationship and in connection with other people. That's straight from A Woman's Way through the 12 steps.
Moving from isolation to connection.
Exactly. That focus on community, mutual support, sponsorship, having a guide further down the path. It's not just helpful, it's life-sustaining.
The core of it, really.
Yeah. Daily reflection says nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics.
Helping others helps you stay sober.
Precisely. The simple act of sharing your experience, strength, hope, that's healing. It's a gift from God, they call it, a core principle. This giving and receiving builds connection, breaks that isolation many women feel.
And it's crucial to remember this isn't like a one-and-done thing, right? It's ongoing.
A lifetime practice, absolutely.
Step 10 is about continuing that personal inventory, admitting when you're wrong promptly, daily self-awareness.
Keeping the connection alive.
Yeah. And step 11 encourages ongoing prayer and meditation, not asking for stuff, but seeking knowledge of a higher power's will for you and the strength to follow it. Deepening that spiritual link. And then step 12, it feels like the culmination. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
So it expands beyond just not drinking.
Totally. It's about a complete transformation, a new state of consciousness and being, finding the real joy of living.
And service.
Yeah. Giving that asks no reward, love that has no price tag, turning even the tough stuff, monotony, pain, and calamity, turning it to good use by practice of steps. It's a whole new way of living.
And it's that amazing paradox again in step 12, isn't it? By giving the gift away, by helping others, carrying the message, you keep it yourself. You strengthen your own recovery.
It reinforces everything.
It's not just being nice. It's a fundamental mechanism. It creates this cycle of support, of growth. And that spiritual awakening, it's not always fireworks. It's often this new relationship with yourself, with others, with that higher power.
Leading to it.
Leading to what A Woman's Way calls an ease in living, an acceptance and serenity, transforming how you experience everything yourself, relationships, spirituality.
Moving from self-pity to action.
Exactly. From isolation to real charity. An outward focus that builds purpose and connection, that's the bedrock of lasting recovery.
Wow. We have covered a lot of ground today, from, how big alcohol targets women, that whole pervasive wine mom culture.
Turning women into emerging market.
Right. All the way to the really personal struggles.
Yeah.
Admitting powerlessness when society screams for perfection, facing those deep fears of judgment. It just seems so clear that for a woman, surrender isn't weakness at all. It's this incredibly powerful act of defiance.
Defiance against cultural norms.
Yeah. And a really courageous step toward reclaiming yourself.
Right.
Realizing that typical addict stereotype is just, damaging fiction.
Harmful prejudice.
And that maybe healing starts not with a label, but with that deeper question. Why can't I be with myself at all?
Exactly. And what's so compelling is how this path for women often involves taking apart these deeply held beliefs about strength, control, fulfillment.
Beliefs we absorb from society.
Yeah, and the stories we tell ourselves. It's a journey from that lonely isolation to real connection, from that exhausting self-sufficiency to a kind of liberating interdependence.
Finding strength in vulnerability.
Right. Embracing a path, maybe spiritual, maybe community-based, that redefines strength through honesty, through connection. Finding freedom, real freedom, not in the bottle.
I've been connecting deeply.
To yourself and to others, built on courage, honesty, and that willingness to face the uncomfortable stuff.
So as you go about your day, maybe thinking a bit differently now about how alcohol shows up around us. Consider this. In a world that's always offering distractions, easy fixes for discomfort, what uncomfortable truths might you be avoiding in your own life?
It's a provocative thought.
And what incredible power, what real liberation might be waiting for you on the other side of that discomfort if you just dare to sit with it for a moment. That journey of surrender, especially for a woman, It really is a path to discovering profound strength and maybe true freedom.